What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. We are back at the 1992 Yellow DECH Notch, and if you remember where we left off on the last video, I pulled out the center console frame so I could repair those four nasty little holes from the old school stereo installation plates. So got that all cleaned up and ready, started digging out some of my old school stereo stuff to get ready to install, and then, well, I started going down the rabbit hole a little bit. So I did a members live the other night, and I do them randomly, guys. So, you know, for anybody who's a member of the channel, I hop on, do some random stuff. Sometimes do a couple little freebies, if you will, to the people that are on there. And, you know, we were talking about this rabbit hole and everything now that I've got planned to do with the car, because like one thing led to another. And if you guys have listened to the Rolling on My 5.0 podcast, the alarm was one key component to the rabbit hole. So you see this little key fob right here, this Viper? Now, there's no bulge here. This is like first generation DEI, you know, the same that did like the hornets and the wasps and all the other insect style car repellents, if you will. They use this battery, this guy right here. What is this? This is a 29A, and I think 25A might be the same. Guys, this thing is tiny, and there are 27As or 23As. There's bigger versions of these, and like this is old stock. I think 2001 is when these expired or something absolutely insane. I found them on eBay and got the key fobs working. Thought I did. I think the battery might actually be out, but where I'm going with this is that I wanted to get the trunk release to work in the car because it was a no option car. It never had the button in the center console. As you can see right here, it's got the cap instead of the button. Meanwhile, the wiring is sitting in your car. If you guys are in a similar situation, you can find the wiring up behind in the dash, just above your glove box area, which should be right here. Okay, you can install one of these buttons, hook up the harness, and then just get yourself a latch that has a little solenoid on the back, or you can hook up an aftermarket solenoid. Wiring's already back there, you plug it up and everything will be good. Well, what I wanted is I wanted to use channel 2 of the Viper, which would have been that button there, to do the trunk release. And that wire, for whatever reason, just, it won't work. It won't output. It's supposed to give out a 200 milliamp output. So you can see here, red with white trace. So here's the old school Viper brain and all the wiring and everything else dangling here. And I hooked up you know, an interim relay because I wanted to see if I could get the relay to click, and well, I couldn't. So that made me think, well, this is extremely, extremely old technology. What's gonna happen when I can't get batteries for the key fobs? And I know the original owner of the car, he was like, man, leave the alarm alone. It's nostalgic and this and that. It's got all the proximity sensors. Guys, there's like 4 sirens, like one even hidden in the car, and then all these ones underneath the engine bay. Like when this alarm goes off, like it's like just brain shattering. I might disconnect a couple of the sirens, we'll see. But at the end of the day, I want the convenience and I want the luxury of being able to lock and unlock the doors with a fob, and I want to be able to pop the trunk. So where does that leave us? With the new Viper, look at that. The box is even black and yellow, matches the car, all right? So 135 bucks off eBay, I believe. This is not the remote start version. The remote start, I believe, is a 5505. So very basic, but it can do everything that we need it to do. And the reason why I didn't go with the Fox locks is 2 reasons. The first reason is I want the nostalgia, and well, Viper just kind of goes with it. So even though I'm changing the old school stuff, it's new school with old school vibes, if you will. And the second reason, probably the most important one, that you guys are going to be blown away by this a little bit, because it's really crazy when you think that the Viper made by DEI back in the day in this car was probably circa 1994, 1995-ish, just call it early 90s. And this alarm being newer, right? I don't know, maybe this is the same style they've had for the past 5 years, I do not know. Well, not only does it have an up-to-date style remote of this kind, you also get a pager or an LCD version, which is all bubble wrapped here. But the most important part, you see this wiring harness, and you see all the wires going to this wiring harness, and hell, they even throw in a relay in there for you as well. Well, this is where things get interesting. So let me actually just pull this connector out real quick. So you see this connector from the early 90s? This is gonna blow your mind. So pretty much, all right, same style, maybe a little bit different looking. But if we look at this, red with white, so that's our channel 2 output. Red, which is our constant 12 volts. Brown, which I think triggers the lights. Yellow, which will be your switched ignition. Black, which is your ground. And then you got door input and door lock stuff. And the only wire that is not the same is this gray wire versus the black with white. So this actually tells you everything on the back. So gray is valet switch input, which in this case, valet switch is right here. And we'll go get the new style brain. Okay, so here's the brand new brain. This is the cable for the antenna. So the nice thing about the new is that we're gonna have a way better range than this old guy. So let's just plug the antenna in here. Which I'm assuming that's green goes into white, which really doesn't make sense, but that's fine. Okay, so there's that. Here is our brand new pager with a battery included. Probably not the world's, well, Toshiba. Okay. The old Viper noises. Okay. So, new harness, which again, we're just going to keep that off to the side. Here's the brain, and the valet switch isn't necessarily all that important, okay? So if we look at our harness here, this would go like so, I believe. Or does it, we want you to go like so? No, it's like so. So that's going to clip. Yeah, so red with whites over here. Look at this. So the reality here is so other than like the clip style of the connector not being the same, all the wiring's in the exact same place. So you guys would probably understand how simple, generally speaking, it's going to be to wire up the new Viper system, as opposed to, you know, starting with something else, whether it's a code alarm or audio vox. I don't even know who the players are these days. But, you know, even though I could possibly do the Fox lock setup, the other concern that I have is that these are actually aftermarket door lock actuators. And the way that the door locks off the old Viper have been wired, I'm not 100% sure if the Fox locks is actually going to jive with this system. So I'm going to go through, because I don't like a lot of that wiring. Like, it's functional, and not knocking the previous owner whatsoever. I know he did this when he was, I think, like in his late teens, when he got the car. And this is what people did back then. There was a lot of electrical tape, a lot of, you know what I mean, twisting wires and stuff together. But I'm going to go through and clean up and clean out a lot of that stuff, and out with the old, in with the new. And I'm excited, right? So that way I can get an upgraded paging alarm, and I will have to sort out the door lock actuators. I'm gonna get this figured out. We'll start doing some wiring in here and get the alarm sorted. One other thing in terms, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the stereo and all that stuff wrapped up into this video, but the other thing is gauges. These old school auto meters here, we got oil and amps. Not a huge fan of, I guess, the style of those gauges, nor, you know, just the little 2-pod bolt on top of your factory pillar. Not a huge fan of that. So I've got this Glow Shift triple pillar pod that I've already prepped and sprayed up with the Color Bond 338. You can see this is an Autometer style pod. The texture of the Glow Shift is actually nicer, in my opinion. It's not as aggressive as the Autometer, and you know, this one isn't painted, so it's extra shiny. But just to give you an idea, I could have gone with a two gauge pod, but I'm opting to go with the 3. And I found these old, well, not old, but old to me. I've had these laying around, carbon fiber ultralights that have yellow in them, which the yellow is perfectly suited for this car. So we got oil, water, and volts, and so that should be pretty cool. So not that I'm trying to like race or rice the car out with a bunch of gauges, but it's sort of like that nostalgic piece. And in fact, I don't even mind the shift light on the steering column cover like that. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that can stay. So anyways, guys, gonna get to some wiring, and hopefully we can get this Viper alarm all figured out within reason fairly quickly. And I'm gonna try, if I can, to reuse some of those proximity sensors and what is it, like vibration sensors as well. And that's pretty much it. So let's get at it. All right, so after an hour of messing around with wires, I don't know if things look any better. They actually are, believe it or not. It's the old saying, things get worse before they get better. So I've cut out a tremendous amount of wiring from here. In fact, I just gotta get this ground off here that was tapped in a million different ways. Look at this, starts off white, goes black, taps off to a brown with a black trace here. And I think a lot of that was for sirens or something. I don't know. There's a lot of random brown wires, and typically the brown wires are sirens. You can see where there's a tap there, and all these reds that are tapped together for switched 12 volts. And yeah, so found this yellow wire going to the back. Need to figure out what that was going to. I'm assuming probably a switched 12 volt source to power something up. Meanwhile, I did find a remote wire that's going to the back here. So I'm just gonna have to just kind of see what's going on here. Yeah, there's the remote wire here off this harness. So anyways, one thing, there is some other wiring in here that's unique to the immobilizer, the DECH immobilizer, which is this guy here. So try not to mess with any of that. And I did test the wires for the door lock actuators, and they do what they need to. So I need to do a relay, like a 2 relay wire setup, where one will be 12 volts, the other will be ground for lock, and then it'll flip that and, you know, be able to lock and do the opposite in terms of polarities there. Got rid of okay, so all right, this is our new stuff that I need to sort out, but here is all the stuff I've cut out so far. And yeah, like the amount of electrical tape and splices and everything else. And again, all right, I'm not going to bash, because a lot of the connections were done fairly well, considering there's a couple solder. The ones off the bottom side of the column, those were all soldered, but a lot of these guys, it was like T-splice, wrap around and loop around, twist around, and then electrical tape on top. So, you know, that's what we did in our teenage years. Well, hell, there's grown men that still do it and use wire nuts and everything else to this day. So yeah, I got those sensors. I will need special connectors to probably get them to work again. I'm not too concerned. This proximity one was actually pretty sweet. So if I can find a connector that'll work on the new brain, I could maybe repurpose that if I really wanted to, but it's definitely not high on the priority list right now. So I know a lot of you guys do not like wiring. It's a thing that definitely requires patience and dedication. Yeah, I guess I'll just sort of leave it at that. But you know what I mean? It's really just take your time, you know, follow the colors or whatever the reference for that wire is, and do one wire at a time if you have to. And, you know, don't commit 100% until you know that everything is working. Make sure that you try your relays and that, you know, you use your test light to make sure you know what's power, what's ground, what's switch 12 volts, what's constant 12 volts, so on and so forth. So this, moving forward, should actually be pretty simple. I need to find 2 relays to do the relay ordeal. I'll be using these connectors here, which are pretty slick because they double as a butt connector, and you can actually heat them up and they shrink down and seal the wire. So that that'll be my application there. I do have some heat shrink here, which will probably come in handy in a couple other scenarios. You can see I've already got my pre-out unit all pre-wired up. You can see how the connector melts down and seals the wires in there. So this is already done, and I had to make my own custom connector in there because I didn't have one for that pre-out unit. So that's it. I'm going to grab a beer and take a quick break. And what else? I might pull the pillar pod out as well. Like, before I commit to everything, I need to make sure that everything that needs to be wired, I need to figure out what that yellow wire is doing that's going towards the back of the car. Because the last thing that I want to have to do is rip stuff apart or take stuff apart after I've spent so much time putting it all back together nice and clean like. So that's the name of the game, guys. All right, so after all of that, believe it or not, there's only a few wires that are really left for me to use. And it's going to be the yellow, which is switched ignition, white, which does your parking lights, purple is the door positive open trigger, and then this brown, which is spliced off, and this brown, these are all sirens. Actually, this red's a siren as well. and that one sounds like it's pretty much dead. It just chirps like so. I am going to probably pull that one through, find out where it needs to go, and cut it out. So from an alarm perspective, really just these guys, and I have a new connector here. This is going to be my main 12-volt feed. We are right down to the basics here, guys. So out of all the wires that we need for this guy to run, we are left with just this. So these are wires we don't need. Negative door trigger input, dome light, 30-second whatever if you want that to turn on as an auxiliary channel. And what else? I forget what the other one is. Not being used. Blue, if we want to hook up any external sensors like the proximity sensor. So I got an end on that just in case. This will be for the trunk pop relay once I get that wired in. And then this is for our door locks. So aside from that, everything's in here. Even got the ignition kill. And not that I should be showing you guys all this, but whatever, it's in there. And here's our remote saying we are unlocked. So can see it says our door is open. Doesn't like that, but of course, you know, it still arms the system, knowing that that zone is, and it says zone 1 is open. So, and that's why it chirps that many times. Versus, let me hold the GoPro with my legs. I'll push in the door trigger. All right, now we are properly armed. Let's open the door. There we go. Not too bad for a night's work. I'm gonna call it there because I need my relays to show up so I can do the door locks, the hatch release, and then of course I'm gonna get into the A-pillar gauges and start plumbing everything that's required for those. And here's all the lovely goods. A lot cleaner. Still looks messy, but trust me, it's a lot cleaner.